But this is serious, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister's incompetence is hurting real people. They're losing their jobs. The cost of everything is going up, from energy bills to the weekly shop. This is a crisis made in Downing Street. Isn't the truth that he is too weak to change course and too arrogant to admit he got things wrong?
Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, grab your drink, whatever beverage, your juice, the Kool-Aid for the kids, tea, coffee, of course, your wine, red or white. Yeah, grab your pill, your notepad, your tablet, your pencils, of course. Grab the children. Call the neighbor. Call a friend. Call your mama. Call your grandmama, your grandpapa, your nieces and your nephews. Let them all know that Simon Says is on. Buckle your seatbelts. We'll be right back.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I want to start off. I was contacted by a mother that's heartbroken at the moment. The story of a single mother who is now out of her wits and asks that I make public her dilemma, well, hers and her daughter's. 5 years ago, her daughter received a scholarship, a medical scholarship from the government of Grenada to the St. George's University. A proud mother bent backwards, or as they say, bent over backwards, to make sure her daughter made it through her 5 years at SGU. She had to pay for room and board in the Chublu area because, of course, they don't live in the south. They don't live close to the campus. They have no transportation, on their own, no personal transportation. So in order for the daughter to meet her requirements, she has to be close to campus, studying late at nights and all of those things. She needed to be closer to the campus. So she had to sacrifice and pay for room and board for her daughter down in the south, in Chublu. She made it through. She made it through. Well, by the grace of God, of course, and with the strength of her mother, she made it through the 5 years. And by the grace of God and the strength of her mother, she made it through the 5 years, did her exams and passed, and is ready to start her clinicals in November of 2025. But there's one huge obstacle in the way. She was hoping to do her clinicals in the USA, only she was refused the visa to enter the USA. Again, her committed mom raised over $4,000 to send her daughter to Barbados to access the visa. Ticket, room and board, the actual visa, it's very expensive now. To continue her studies, she needed the visa to go to the US to do her clinicals. She was denied. Not just her, but many of her classmates, her Grenadian classmates, was also denied the visa, some of whom had a visa already and was denied the renewal And like her, as the daughter said to me, she had a visa since she was a baby. And then since then, it was never renewed. So she was, you can say, getting a new visa. And she was turned down. The UK is an option, but a very expensive option beyond the means of her mom, who, as I said, is a single mother. Mom cannot afford to send her daughter to the UK. They have no relatives there, no, and you know, all of those things that would cut back on the cost if she go to the US. They have exercised all avenues. The university said they can't help. They don't normally help. They don't have a policy where you get a student visa through the university. And the students before, everybody used the B1, B2 visa, which they had to get on their own, and which she tried to, and her other classmates, and they all were turned down. The mom and her daughter, they tried the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for help. That fell through as well. The young lady spoke to the Prime Minister. She actually met him at the funeral in St. David, and she addressed it there. She was kind of hesitant, and she said to him, but he said, no, you can talk. And she told him, he said he would try to address it, and gave her his number. She'd been calling him since, no answer, no return. So that, of course, fell through as well. Not out of malice, this mother contacted me to make public their plight on the premise that someone out there might be able to help, either in the daughter getting her visa, some kind of answer, some kind of help, so that her daughter can continue her studies to do her clinical in the US. Folks, what is sad is the fact that our executive, our cabinet members are mostly responsible for the plight our young people are facing today with this visa restriction, or not being given their visas to the US. In February of 2025, the US State Department asked the Caribbean islands that are receiving labor from Cuban Cubans, especially their health providers, to look into it. They accused us of human trafficking, and it's all to do with how the Cubans are treated, and by their government, really. You know, they come here, 65% of their salary have to be sent back to Cuba. They get 35 in hand. And the US State Department is not at all happy with that. They asked us to look at it. And I believe our administration has dropped the ball. They have dropped the ball. And in my mind, the Prime Minister should have formally engaged the US State Department with a comprehensive, coherent policy response. Instead, what did they do? They knocked their chests as to their support for Cuba, showing arrogance. Here is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Joseph Andel.
Cuba continues to be a trustworthy friend and partner, not only of Grenada, not only of the Caribbean, but of peoples the world over. When the COVID pandemic broke out, Cuban doctors went as far as Italy to provide services. I didn't hear anybody talk about human trafficking or nothing like that. Mr. Speaker, we have not just a legal obligation, we have a moral and ethical obligation to stand by the people of Cuba. Were it not for the selfless support of Cuba, many of us would not have had the opportunities for further education that we got. On the other side, the honorable member from St. Mark, testament of that. The table enough for that. No. The renowned economist, Honorable Chotai, Brother Dennis Cornwall, and myself for a brief period. Our health infrastructure would collapse without the generous intervention of Cuba. And for that, we must always take a principled stand and at all costs avoid being opportunistic or transactional as it relates to the relationship between Cuba and Grenada. So the Prime Minister led a delegation to Cuba on an official visit, and again, a number of very important cooperation agreements were signed. Health, education, environment, culture, and so on. Mr. Speaker, going back to travel again. In 2023,
now, I want to ask you this question of being a part of the cabinet here in Grenada. I want to ask you this question. We have heard that the U.S. intention to impose that visa restriction on all all government officials, I should say, yourself, your family included. If Grenada and all other countries do not immediately end or engage the Cuban medical professionals, what is the volume of Cuban involvement in Grenada's health? If you could answer that for me also, healthcare system. And what damage can this do to the health system here in Grenada? And if I could continue along that lines, a couple of multiple points of this question. No definite statement, I would say, has been made on the issue by your government, if I could say that, thus far, with the exception of saying thanks to the Cubans. Is your cabinet and other senior government officials willing to give up their U.S. visas, to keep Cuba healthcare professionals in Grenada system? And if not, what are the alternatives being discussed? Are there any alternatives being discussed thus far by cabinet members?
Well, I always believe that you have to put the people above one political self. And in that sense, I believe that my government has already cited that we are prepared to go to the extreme to make sure that we keep our people safe. So if it means that we have to give up our visa rights to the US to make sure that Grenada stands behind Cuba as one of the countries that supported Grenada in thick and thin. I personally was one of the persons who graduated from Cuba University back in the days and so on. I got a scholarship to Cuba. And as such, I have a moral obligation to support the Cubans in every way. So if it means that the government of the US had to take away our visas because we support the Cuban initiative, I would say so be it.
Yeah.
The Cuban doctors and nurses who have visited our shows over the years and perform a valuable service for our people. We complain every day that the service in the hospital is bad. But we have Grenadians who are graduated from St. George universities, Grenadians, and they are not here to basically support the health system. So if we can depend on the Cuban graduates to basically help the system until we can fix it to a point, I would say so be it. And I'll fully support the Cubans at any time, anywhere, because I think they are doing a very useful and human service to the government of Grenada and the people of Grenada.
Okay. While we're on healthcare, what is the...
Now, in my mind, this is not about choosing sides. Choosing Cuba, I stand by Cuba and not America. This is not, it shouldn't be political or partisan. As a matter of fact, if the ministers love Cuba so much because they were able to study there and they have friends there, to me, they should be happy to be able to help the Cuban medical providers who are here in Grenada by giving them all the money in their hand that they work for. I don't understand the big separation and how you stand by Cuba and all this outpour that is affecting our young people who are trying to further their studies in the US. It is affecting them. This is about our economical survival at the end of the day. Our foreign policy, which shows, of course, that the US is our most important ally. Today, our Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, his visa was revoked. And our citizens are suffering for their arrogance. I leave this here. I wish my lady and her daughter all the best, and I hope that something work out for them eventually, so this young lady can go pursue her career as a medical doctor. All she needs to do now is a 2-year clinical, and she have no visa to go to the US. I just thought I'll bring to you the section in the Grenada Constitution Order 1973. That is our supreme law. The section that deals with the disqualification for membership of the House of Representatives. And that we spoke of last week, the bankruptcy saga. Now, Section 31, subsection 1, under the disqualifications for membership of House of Representatives. And it reads, no person shall be qualified to be elected as a member of the House of Representatives if he and A is by virtue of his own act under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, and adherence to a foreign power or state. B is what we're looking for, is an undischarged bankrupt, having been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in Grenada. Now, I'm going to go to read it to you subsection 6, and that reads, in paragraph E of subsection 1 of this section, government contracts means any contract made with the government of Grenada or with a department of the government or with any officer of the government contract as such. So let's go back to E. And E reads, subject to such exceptions and limitations as may be prescribed by Parliament as has any such interest in any such government contract as may be prescribed. And what they're saying here, that even if due diligence was done, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance having contracts with the CBI as agents should not have been accepted as candidates for the elections or being accepted into the parliament of Grenada, according to our supreme law. And so since we are talking about bankrupt, I will segue into our bankrupt administration. Folks, things grimy. The Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, hosted a press conference on Monday, the 22nd of September 2025. Alongside him, his brother, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mike Sylvester. You heard that, right? Him being the Minister of Finance and his brother, the permanent secretary in the same ministry. If that's not conflict of interest, then what is? But the Prime Minister said, Grenada is a small place, we must expect conflict of interest. At the press conference, it was announced that the Ministry of Finance / Government of Grenada will be launching its first ever, and you know we like first ever household bond program. Desperate times calls for desperate measures. All of a sudden, Deacon Mitchell and his administration thought it necessary to teach us Grenadians financial literacy through the purchasing of bonds. Here is Minister Cornwall as he explains.
Grenada launched its inaugural household bond initiative on Monday as part of a pilot in collaboration with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. The issuer of the bond is the government of Grenada in the amount of 5 million EC dollars offered to individual investors through the regional government securities market. Speaking during Monday's soft launch, Finance Minister Honorable Dennis Cornwall says the bond aims to encourage financial literacy and empower Grenadians to begin their investment journey.
This visionary initiative serves as a gateway for individuals to increase their financial literacy. It is designed specifically for individual investors across Grenada and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. When I say individual investors, I want to ensure that everyone understands that we are not talking about institutions such like the banks, the credit unions, the insurance companies, national insurance, and other pension funds or businesses who are referred to as institutional investors. I'm talking about giving regular citizens and family the opportunity to learn about investing, wealth creation, and wealth management through real-world experience that gives actual returns.
In other words, they broke. And they're trying to raise funds to support their only capital project on paper to be realized, Project Polaris. So we, the citizens, must take the burden. Now, here is the permanent secretary, as he further explains the launch of the household bond program.
The Ministry of Finance is seeking to inspire a cultural shift from saving to investing with the launch of Grenada's first ever household bond program. The initiative was announced on Monday by Finance Minister Dennis Cornwall alongside Permanent Secretary Mike Sylvester during a press conference. According to officials, Grenada is one of only 2 Caribbean countries piloting the program in partnership with the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and other stakeholders. Grenadians can bid with a minimum investment of $500 and a maximum of $50,000. The bonds, totaling EC 5 million, are backed by the government's National Consolidated Fund.
Issuer for the household bond is the government of Grenada, and that is very important. In the sense that the bond itself is backed by the Consolidated Fund. So it's backed by the government of Grenada, and the principal repayment amount as well as the interest.
In Interested individuals are encouraged to register early through the Ministry of Finance's website, as allocation will be on a first-come, first-served basis. The bonds will offer a fixed annual interest rate of 4.25%, payable in May and November over a 2-year period. Bidding officially opens on October 31st and closes on November 21st.
This is the period where persons will begin to bid for the bond. And again, it's a first come, first served basis. So if the amount is actually reached and you bid, then you have a chance that you will not get through, right? And so it's important that you basically try to bid as early as possible. And that period opens up on the 31st of October, and it will extend to the 21st of November. So that is a subscription period within which you have to, or you're required to engage a broker to place a bid for a portion of the $5 million. In terms of the brokers,
investors will be able to choose from up to 6 brokers, including the Grenada Cooperative Bank. P.S. Sylvester noted that finer details, such as broker fees, are being finalized and will be available ahead of the official launch.
There are basically around 6 brokers operating in the sub-region. Our own Grenada Cooperative Bank is our local broker here. So if that's an option for you, then you can use that option. You have the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank. That's another option. You have the Bank of Nevis Limited. That's another option. You have the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines as another option. The Bank of St. Lucia, another option, and the First Citizen Investment Services as another broker within the region operating out of St. Lucia that you can also use as your broker. So
the program is being mirrored by St. Kitts and Nevis, with both countries' household bonds to be listed on the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange. Officials stress that the initiative is not about government raising revenue, but about creating opportunities for ordinary Grenadians to participate in the stock market and build wealth through investment. Rena Pierre Thomas, GBN News.
Not about government raising revenues? Then what's it for? And the other island, St. Kitts, they broke too. That's our Prime Minister's party and partner. They broke as well. They may be more broken than us, St. Kitts. So they are selling bonds to their citizens as well. Now let's dig into this bond thingy. A bond is a debt. It's a debt instrument. So when we purchase bonds, we, the citizenry, we are lending the government our money. And then we work in this said country to pay back the money we loan the government. Just think about that for a minute. That's what they teaching us, financial literacy. That's the literacy they're trying to teach us, as they say. Undercover, right? We loan the government and we pay, and then we are working to pay it back as well. Lest we forget, the debt of any state is the burden of the people, right? And we can all agree on that. The people and its future generations, our children, children, and it continues. We are the ones that's paying back the debt of the country. Here's what the Minister of Finance have to say on Grenadians paying.
But again, from time to time you would have pressures on government funding and so on, because again, monies don't just drop from trees. We have to go out there and tax the population to get the monies to do what we have to do. And there are a lot of people who still believe that they should not be paying tax. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
What is the balancing act? What will we gain from this situation? Now, bonds are floated all the time, and anyone can purchase bonds, mostly on the regional stock market. People purchase bonds. You have to get a broker. Well, the permanent secretary alluded to that. And you have to pay brokerage fee. And then you purchase your bond. Here in Grenada, the Grenada Cooperative Bank is a broker. And then they gave us all the Skititian ones and the ones in St. Vincent and St. Lucia everywhere. Now, the minister spoke of his government wanting to teach us financial literacy. I have been advised by someone in the business, someone who is financially prudent, that it is always wiser to purchase bonds in the foreign. In other words, from a foreign country. So as a Grenadian, you don't see Grenadians really purchasing these bonds because, as I said earlier on, it's a debt that you would have to work to pay back anyways. But what is mind-boggling is, why are we, the ordinary citizens, why are we being asked to purchase bonds as a contribution to Project Polaris? Minister Cornwall, you told us that you were part of a team that were able to raise the funds for Project Polaris. And what about the 250 million US dollars we were borrowing from the Afri-Exim Bank? The pledge of the bank at the 4th Afri-Exim Forum held here in Grenada, the pledge of $250 million for Grenada towards Project Polaris. How is we? How is we now? We, the people. Additionally, what's up with our usual creditors? The creditors from the usual financial institutions that we borrow from, like the World Bank, CDB, IMF, our usual creditors. Did we get turned down? Because I am almost certain if we could have, we would have. You know, you guys really take us for fools, huh? Financial literacy. You're going to teach us financial literacy. The only thing left for you guys to do now is to get on a DJ truck, on the back of a DJ truck on a Saturday, and go around the island, compete with the Grenadians who are trying to raise monies to help their loved ones travel, to save their lives. That's the only thing left for you guys to do, to raise money for Project Polaris. In the meantime, why not raise funds to maintain the general hospital? I am so tired of hearing of babies and toddlers losing their lives, dying at our general hospital. Why don't we raise funds to upgrade the Princess Alice Hospital? That hospital that's supposed to serve the rural areas, St. Andrew, St. Patrick, even parts of St. David. It's standing there like a big clinic Our people are dying senselessly. And all you're studying to be the health capital of the world or the region. When we ain't have a pot to piss in when it comes to health care. Come on now, come on now. Let's think about saving lives before the fanfare, before we show off about health capital. Hang your hat where your hand can reach. And in another couple of months, you guys have to come back again to us for the okay to beg for millions of dollars again, hundreds of millions of dollars to satisfy your 2026 budget. Another loan appropriation bill to come to Parliament. To raise the money you need for the 2026 budget. Let's hear the Minister of Finance on the loan appropriation bill.
The Debt Appropriation Act that was approved in Parliament during the budget authorized the borrowing of $800 million. How much of that money has been borrowed to date, sir?
Okay, so we passed in the budget this loan appropriation bill, which basically authorized the government to borrow monies for its development side of the projects. For example, the roads, the buildings, and whatever infrastructural type. Because as part of the financing or funding of the budget and so on, we needed to show the populace where those monies are coming from. We talked about raising some extra monies on the stock exchange in the Eastern Caribbean. Yes. We also said we go after looking for funding at concessionary type loans to build our capital aspect of it. And so far, we have gone ahead and done a lot of work behind the scene. In fact, one of the major projects that we have coming up would be the hospital project, that is smart hospital project in Calivini. And so we have been on the road for the last couple of months, talking to who matters out there to basically make sure we can actually get those monies and so on. And as I mentioned earlier on, we are well on our way to get that monies. In fact, last week while I was in Vienna, I also met with the Arab Coalition Group, which includes Kuwait, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, and other countries, where we are basically interfacing with the institutions to see if we can raise the monies that we needed to make that hospital happen. Yeah. And while we are still having a few fine tuning to go, we should be able to announce before the end of the year that we have sourced the monies, and this is where we are going with it.
All right.
The roads, sir, we're paying for the roads separately, right? We're paying for the roads separately from our pockets, people again. And by the way, half out of that loan from last year's budget went towards Project Polaris. Half of it was, I think, of $400 and something million was estimates for Project Polaris. What have we done so far? The bush ain't even cut yet. Folks, the bottom line is the administration is dead broke and actions speak louder than words. They ain't telling us that, but by their actions, all their stalled and slowed down projects. And all you're hearing is the contractor saying get paid. The contractor saying get paid. The contractor went for material and was turned down by the store, the hardware stores. Can't give you any more. We ain't get paid. Actions speak louder than words. Now, on Tuesday, the 23rd September 2025, in a Facebook post. Public servant, Fimber Thomas. Yes, you know that name, right? The infamous. That's the one that was at Kaipo. That's the one that formed a company inside a Kaipo doing the same work as Kaipo. That's the one that was collecting monies on behalf of the government and keeping it. That's the ones who charging the people, citizens, twice and 3 times and 4 times and 5 times as much monies for the same job that Kaipo would have charged them way less. That one, the one that was removed from Kaipo when the story bus and put him in the blue economy. Guess he have a lot of time on his hands. So he's posting and calling in on talk shows during working hours, even if he's off on leave, maybe on vacation. He's a public servant. That's some of the things even simpler things than that. The 4 in Carriacou and the 4 in St. Andrews were sent home because they supported the NNP administration in the 2022 elections. That's why they lost. That's why the administration lost and had to pay them. Yeah? So, Mr. Fimber Thomas, big post. His post reads, the school feeding program, and you can read along, it should be on the screen. The school feeding program has gotten so sophisticated that the school is even sending the week's menu to parents, something that was never done before. Thanks to the cooks, principal, teacher, and the teachers who are doing an exceptional job. God bless you all. Thanks to the Deacon Mitchell-led admin, and that's where we're going, right? That's where we're heading. Thanks to the Deacon Mitchell-led administration, who continue to provide the avenues for real transformation. Now, I have news for Mr. Thomas. Like most of you Johnny come lately, you didn't know that teachers, schools, cooks, whoever it is, sent out menus before. Yes, it wasn't consistent, but they did send out menus before. And the menus included vegetables and fruits and what the meal was. And that was also so that parents can say to the schools that my child is allergic to this and they don't eat that or that type of thing. So it was done before. It's not the very first time, okay? Now, to put out a post like that, it shows a level of desperation. An example of grabbing at straws as you go down. Here's the menu that the sophistication of a menu that Mr. Fimber Thomas was speaking of. Monday, the 22nd of September 2025, split peas and rice and stewed chicken. Tuesday, the 23rd September 2025, white rice and curry chicken. Wednesday, the 24th of September 2025, split pea soup. Thursday, 2025. I'm afraid to ask what's the meat in in the soup because I know it's chicken. Thursday, the 25th September 2025. Macaroni and cheese and stew chicken. Friday, the 26th September 2025. Rice and peas and stew chicken. And they have big hard back. I want to say hard something else, but I can't say it on air. Hard back men supporting the NDC, sharing this, right? Rice and stew chicken all week. Where are the fruits and the vegetables? And where's the fish in between? And we boasting this, we hang on boasting of sophistication of the school feeding program. Sophistication, big word. Rice and stewed chicken. We heard the permanent secretary, Pierre St. Louis Ned, told the nation all is well with the school feeding program. In the same press conference, the Minister of Education, Minister David Andrew, said the same thing. They admit they had hiccups in the past year, but it's all well and good. The material, the groceries were already dropped off at the schools and they're ready to go for this new year, the school new year starting September 2025. Now, information reaching me from some schools throughout the island, they're saying quite the opposite. There are schools that have not received meat, that have only received meat. In fact, chicken only. And according to the Minister of Finance, speaking on the school feeding program, the MPs alone, he said, and I'm guessing he's speaking about the cabinet of Grenada there, they alone are not responsible for keeping the school feeding program alive and well.
Energize the school feeding program, although some people have it as though we have to do everything for ourselves. The schools, the principals, the teachers, the parents, they all have to get involved to make sure that works. It does not depend on the parliamentarians only to have it done. There's a lot of collaboration that needs to get done. The shopkeepers, the farmers, you have the supplies in the fields and so on. We could talk about it, but if the people don't go out and get it, it won't happen.
Everyone should actually play a part.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So the farmers who have the excess in the field after they have sold to the market and export whatever remains and so on, they need to basically organize the other players in the game to basically make sure that we can get the bananas, the gospo, the limes, the orange, the golden apples, whatever fruits that we have outside, the mangoes. Look, right now mango is spoiling out the place. Get it into the schools.
You heard him. I guess they didn't get the mangoes and the gospos and the bananas, and so that they're begging the farmers, if they have excess, to drop off. Farmers catching their tail these days. If you notice, none shall escape. Everybody's selling something. If you have a bunch of fig, you put it on a tray by the side of the road. Things bad, minister. Things tight. Things grimy. Clearly, the Minister of Finance is on a different page to the members from the Ministry of Education. However, the Minister of Finance is the one we have to take seriously. He's the one responsible for the financing. So I'll go with what he said and what he is asking of us, again, the people, the farmers, the shopkeepers, whatever you have. He's mobilizing the communities for help with the school feeding program. Drop off what you can. Gospo, mango. So then why discontinue the program as you met it? Why? Why not allow the parents to continue with $1 a day towards the meals? Again, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Now, that same morning, on Tuesday, the 23rd of September, 2025, Mr. Thomas called in on the GBN To The Point program to show support for the MP for St. David, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, and his hard work and achievements to the constituency, whilst the caretaker for the NNP, Ms. Nolene Thompson, was on that program that morning in question, between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Simon Says is asking on behalf of the people if there's an investigation, an ongoing investigation into the allegations where Mr. Fimber Thomas allegedly committed fraud, corruption, embezzlement at Kaipo. We heard he was transferred. I think it was for 6 months. So I guess we wait and we see what's going to happen after the 6 months. Or an update might be okay. An update might be okay. But we wait. They say 6 months. And we agree that Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell is on the ground a little bit more now than he was before Nolene Thompson became the caretaker for the NNP in St. David's. He's even doing night shifts.
The government is delivering at what time in the night? 7:56, 8 p.m. We're walking the road with hard-working road officers from the infrastructure department. We don't always like to see the public servants, but we have two civil servants who are going beyond the call of duty on a Friday. And Friday we've been walking the West Hall Stones Road so that we can start construction soon. You can see the trees are being cut. So West Hall residents have no fear. We are here. Thank you.
The government is delivering, building private roads in the constituency with taxpayers' money under the guise of farm roads. What do you think Andy and them take it far? By the way, Fimber Thomas, do you know that this week's make 4 weeks back to school? And the Form 1s and 2s in the secondary school are yet to receive their military grade laptops and their e-books. We need a bit of sophistication there. 4 weeks. They have no hard copies because the bookstores were not given the list because, of course, we get in e-books. So they have no hard copies. Some parents manage to get books out of Trinidad. If you can't do so, if you don't have the connection to get that done, your kids have no books, no hard copies, no e-books, no computers. These are the things we need reported. Not a menu with only rice and stewed chicken. On Friday, September the 19th, 2025, in a release put out by the Ministry of MIT. Yeah, my favorite ministry. It reads, Let me get my glasses. Good afternoon, contractors. Cabinet has decided to create a new housing ministry to manage all government housing needs. MIT will close the Build Back Better program, completing all current projects by the end of November. Any projects not yet started will be transferred to the new ministry. To streamline contracts, signings, and material orders, please 1. Schedule a meeting with the project manager to sign contracts and address any issues. 2. Submit material orders by 5 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays for twice weekly deliveries. 3. Upon completion of your project, please notify the project number and location via WhatsApp to facilitate the issuance of the completion certificate and submission for payment. These steps will free up my time for weekly field visits to better support you and understand any challenges. Thank you for your cooperation. And as I said, that note came from the Ministry of MIT. Now, according to this release, the Ministry of MIT will close the Build Back Better project at the end of November 2025. Now, according to this release, the Ministry of MIT will close the Build Back Better project at the end of November 2025, and projects not yet started will be transferred to the new ministry. And that new ministry is a new housing ministry announced to us in the 2025 estimate document. Now, it was not announced in the presentation, but it was in the estimate document by the Minister of Finance, Dennis Cornwall, under the heading Titular Changes in Ministry Names, which reads, and following the vote realignments, several ministries have been created or renamed to reflect their update. Now, vote 15 was newly created as Ministry of Tourism, Creative Economy and Culture. Vote 19 is newly created as Ministry of Youth and Sports. Vote 26 removed from the Ministry of Economic Development, Planning, ICT and Creative Economy Development, Planning and Cooperatives. Vote 35 renamed from Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs and Community Development, and that's to Community Development and Gender Affairs. Vote 38 is newly created as Ministry of Housing. Now, that's the ministry we're looking for. Vote 40 renamed from Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture to Ministry of Education. Vote 50 renamed from Ministry of Health, Wellness and Religious Affairs to Ministry of Health. Now, the release from the Ministry of MIT said the Build Back Better project ends in November 2025. Now, Tanti Glo, the ministry, she is in charge of, as we speak, the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Those are her ministries. So you see, housing is also there, right? On the NDC Heartbeat program in June of 2025, Tantiglo announced, and I quote, "We are hoping to conclude the burial response by the end of July." Here is Tantiglo.
We
The housing.
Yeah.
Housing is a big one.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
That's
and
always been.
we've been responding to burial since the disaster. A lot of work in Carriacou was done, and in the north, the other parishes were slightly affected, but they were affected, and we're hoping to conclude the burial response by end of July. End of July, because you must have a window where you operate for response,
Right.
and then you move on. You can't be responding to a disaster for forever.
Well, of course
Yes,
not.
and what we recognize is that we need to go back to the regular housing program, because a lot of people are on the waiting list and they are waiting. We had to set that program aside a bit to focus on the burial response.
Right.
Yes. So although some persons receive housing whilst we were doing the response, we were mainly focusing on burial response. So we want to conclude the burial response by the end of July,
Right.
so we could continue with the regular housing program. And we've been doing.
Okay, so you heard her. End of July, the end of the burial response program, which is the Build Back Better program. Now, to reinforce what Canticlo had to say, here is Finance Minister Dennis Cornwall on the To the Point program on June the 25th, 2025.
Mentioned the CRIF. I want to ask you this question. It just come to mind. We heard from the Minister of Housing, that's Gloria Thomas, that's Honorable Gloria Thomas, that the Burial Relief Fund will come to a close. That's at the end of July. That's someone heard her mention that. I'm just asking, what will happen to many folks who still are living in tents, especially in Carriacou and Petit Martinique? How will they be catered for if that program comes to an end at the end of July?
Okay, so let me say that the minister's statement is quite correct.
Yeah.
They're never all on the same page. Canticlo and Minister Cornwall, end of July, MIT, end of November. The minister or the parliamentary representative, the member for the parliament in the parliament for St. John's, is telling her constituents that the Build Back program in reach in St. John's yet. When they ask and people that are advocating for homes, for persons who have lost their homes, her response is the Build Back Better program is not yet in St. John's. Of course, we have some questions. Who is or will be the new Minister of Housing for the new Ministry of Housing? Because you've heard what the release the Ministry of MIT put out. Secondly, Canticlo has embedded in her group of ministries, Ministry of Housing. Will that ministry be dissolved? And then we have the Housing Authority. What's going on there? So we have several housing projects under several different ministries with no accountability and no transparency. Because Canticlo said she been building houses too, you know. That's just the ones she's been so sad about, that when they've done build, they're no good. That project within the Ministry of Social Development continued, right? Then we, of course, had Andy and the Build Back Better, and we have, I don't know where the Project 500 and the prefab in Carriacou, which ministry they fall under. All I know is that, and all I've shared with you, is that Mr. Randy Dolan is in charge of those. So it's just housing everywhere, but nowhere. Then with housing gone from MIT, thank God, what is the purpose of that ministry, MIT? I mean, we really drew for a shakeup, right? Because a lot of things have to come to play here. His so-called implementation is at an all-time low. MIT could barely finish 50 yards of road these days. Endless unfinished road works and build back better houses throughout the island. What happened in that new ministry? We have to ask. Over the past year, 2025 to 2026, the budget of 2025 for that Ministry of Housing was $27 million. Yeah, there was a budget. 25 million for capital projects, and the capital projects to which the 25 million was divided was 10 million for project 500, 13 million for Grenada Home Improvement and Resilience Project, whatever that is, and 2 million for soft loan housing projects. So here we go. We understand now that Project 500 is under the new ministry as well, the new Ministry of Housing. But we saw Canticlo taking a nice walk with Mr. Dolan up there in Dunfermline, speaking and pointing and showing, as they usual. They like to show in the distance what's happening, right? On Project 5, well, which is now Project 17, right? So we have some information to receive from the government of Grenada on this whole housing saga. Under the housing speech in the budget, and this is important stuff here. Mr. Speaker, Grenada's significant housing deficit was further exacerbated by the devastating impact of Hurricane Beryl. The post-disaster assignments indicated that roughly 2,304 houses were damaged, with 36% being severely damaged or totally destroyed. The destruction caused by the hurricane has underscored, the need for a comprehensive housing strategy, one that not only rebuilds what was lost, but also strengthens our housing sector for the future. Our strategy has three main pillars: our emergency housing recovery plan under a bit of the Build Back Better project, which targeted interventions in crucial areas. This includes reconstructing homes that are completely destroyed, with priority given to the most vulnerable citizens. To date, 147 new homes are at various stages of construction. Now, this is since March 2025, right? Conducting repairs and providing material assistance to homeowners to help them rebuild their homes. Some 1,866 families have been benefited from the Material Distribution Assistance Program or had repairs conducted on their houses, offering concessions and other forms of financial support to families working to rebuild their homes. Some 318 families have received assistance totaling 7.5 million under the tax concession program to date. In 2025, allocations is made for the continuation of the Build Back Better project throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and the Petit Martinique. Now, we ask the question, where are these houses? In that speech, the minister has identified 2,304 houses damaged, with 36% being severely damaged or totally destroyed. So totally destroyed are roughly 830 houses. Can we say today that at the closing of the program, over 1,400 affected homes were renovated and over 800 were built back better? According to figures from the various ministers, we are yet to meet 100 houses. And that's according to them. Every time they say, well, we give another house, right? According to information reaching me, the Build Back Better program was supposed to be removed from under the Ministry of MIT and placed under the new Ministry of Housing. And that was the reason for the new Ministry of Housing, right? And that was supposed to happen since the reading of the 2025 budget. However, it was met with resistance from the Minister of MIT, Andy Williams, and of course was left with him, right? Now, how could he? How could he give up his gravy train and the wallowing of him and his staff in the cash monies that kept flowing through the Ministry of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation, MIT, and the Build Back Better program that was left with the Prime Minister's blue-eye boy? Now, almost 1 year later, millions of dollars unaccounted for. In other words, now that the horse has bolted out of the stable, the Prime Minister decides to close the gates. The people await an audit of the Build Back Better program and the movements of the monies in the Ministry of MIT. The people want to know the reason for a money safe in the Ministry of MIT. The people want to know where the money is dished out and played with in the Ministry of MIT, where that money is coming from. According to the Minister of Finance, all government finances are dealt with through the Ministry of Finance.
Personally, the Minister of Finance is always traditionally, of course, responsible for payments. There's a conversation that I've been hearing. I just want to get... I'm asking you this question for clarification purposes. Responsible for payments, as I mentioned, the Minister of Finance. Can another minister collect checks and distribute them for service providers? Can that actually happen?
The Ministry of Finance has specific functions.
Yeah.
I could outline some of them. We prepare the budget, we collect revenues via our Customs and Excise Department as well as the Inland Revenue Department, right? And all of this money is deposited in our bank accounts, a general one called the Consolidated Fund. And that's where, for example, all the monies that government collect, whether it is tax or non-tax revenue goes. Yeah. And from there, we basically allocate and distribute that monies. The Ministry of Finance also is ultimately responsible for making payments to suppliers, individuals, public servants, and other entities and so on. But to do so, we rely on a number of elements coming in, the ministries, the departments, and so on, making sure that they send the information into the system, which is monitored by the Accountant General Department and the Treasury. So, for example, if a Ministry of Work has a project and a claim surface from them, it comes to the Ministry of Finance. And from the Ministry of Finance, and somebody's checking it and realize, okay, there is a problem with the number that they ask us to pay. Maybe it was the same number.
Yeah.
We have to query that because we are the last stop before things go out and so. So it's not a simple thing that the Ministry of Finance, is the one responsible for paying. We pay, but it must be on authentic information in the system.
Yeah.
If there's problem with information in the system, we have to push back. And sometimes again, I've had cases and so on where people say, oh, it's down in the Ministry of Finance and so on, and they're not paying it and so on. When you do your investigation, that thing have not even left the Ministry Department as yet. Or the person doing it and so on did not complete the assignment and so on. So how can I pay if I haven't received something? So yes, there are issues or instances like that. And we have to work very hard in terms of maintaining the integrity of the system at all times. We try to at all times. But again, it doesn't depend on that department called or that ministry called the Ministry of Finance to do everything. We have to do our check and balances. We have to make sure everything is right before we print a check. So I'm saying that if garbage coming out there and so on, and we accept the garbage in the Ministry of Finance, you remember the phrase, "Kaigo, garbage in, garbage out"?
Yes.
That would happen and so on. But I say, Ministry of Finance is the medium by which we basically interact with the information that comes in and pay based on whether or not that information is authentic.
All right. So no other ministry could, of course, have the authority to do that?
No.
Okay.
In fact, I cannot instruct the Accountant General or anybody in any of my departments to do something that is illegal. I cannot instruct them.
All right.
So tell us, Mr. Minister of Finance, how is it the Ministry of MIT is issuing checks to service providers, having them change the checks and return the cash to the Ministry of MIT? And how is it, Mr. Minister of Finance, that the service providers was paid in cash in hand, by the permanent secretary in the Ministry of MIT, Ms. Nicole Clark, the first cousin of the Minister of MIT, Andy Williams, and even given tips, big tips, $500 cash tip. How is that possible? How is it that monies in the MIT are being distributed in cash? Who the money in MIT belong to? Is it Andy's money? Or is it the government of Grenada's money? The people's money? How it is him and his ministry have access to cash and is responsible for paying service providers? How is that possible in comparison to what you just said? You said it is illegal. You said it, sir, that what is going on in the Ministry of MIT is illegal. And how is it, Mr. Minister of Finance, that just last week, sir, a check and so on, written in the name of one of our hardware stores for $500,000, $500,000, was handed to Miss Dawn, the check lady, the one that walked the men to the bank and take the cash and to go back to the ministry, was handed to her from the Ministry of MIT by the minister with the instructions, go take care of my people, specific people, that is. That, allegedly, sir, again, where did Minister Andy Williams get that kind of monies? Does the minister and ministry of MIT have their own consolidated fund and their own checkbook where they can write their own checks? One relative of the minister of the minister received 3 truckloads of material, needed or not. By the way, is Miss Dawn also a relative of the minister? Now, Minister Cornwall, hypothetically, if Minister Andy Williams can write a check for $500,000 to spend on his relatives, his people, can you imagine if he decides to write a check to himself? Just hypothetically, sir, and so on. Word is, the monies had to be used up before the Build Back Better project leaves the Ministry of MIT. So it's rough. Clean out. How is it? This level of corruption or illegal operations, as you said it, is allowed, and openly so, with the minister of MIT, Andy Williams, and his ministry. That's why he's fan.
So when you have the right leader who has an interest in moving your country forward, the country will benefit tremendously.
Absolutely.
And that is exactly what we have to do. Our Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, I mean, every day I speak to our Prime Minister, I'm marveled. Because his thinking is not just today for today. His thinking is how can we create a better Grenada for his children, my children, your children, right? And their children, so that we can be the envy of the Caribbean.
Yep.
And size, again, does not matter. What matters is the will to move forward, the will to make the tough decisions that may not be favorable all the time, but is necessary for the development of your country.
Now, this clip was taken from the Heartbeat program last Sunday, the 21st September 2025. It's all about being the envy of the Caribbean. Anyways, I have a question for Ms. Dawn of MIT. Who all got material from that $500,000 check? And I have another question. Who the red goods van, the one that goes throughout the island selling grocery, who does that van belong to? I know who the driver is. I just need to know who it belongs to. Folks, it's some serious stuff that's taking place in the open. The corruption in the open. And it continues. It continues. Just a little update on the Grenada Postal Corporation. Work has halted in the building on the carronage that was being retrofitted to accommodate the GPC, the Postal Corporation. I was reliably informed, halted for review/costing. Now, after 6 months of renovating and retrofitting, you close for review and costing? After well over $700,000 spent, after the horse done galloping down the street. We running to close the gate again. Contractor bawling out for pay. Owner lawyering up his 10-year lease agreement already signed. In the meantime, the managing director of GPC is posing in Dubai. There's his photo. He's posing there with the Consul General, Mr. Rahman. These days, going to Dubai is like crossing the Kalaloo drain to go next door to the neighbors. Members of the corporation complain. The general manager travels the world, supposedly on GPC business that no one else knows about. Akaina Sidney and William Baptiste Emo. It's reportedly that an assistant makes the trip with him at times. The question is the GM on long-term leave as we speak? If so, who paid for the flight to Dubai? Who paid for the hotel? Was the monies made to be put back in the GPC account for the hotel when busted? And arrangements made to pay back for the ticket monies? I don't know. I'm just asking for members of the workers of the corporation. All you good learn. All you good learn. In passing, a couple of episodes ago, I believe I mentioned the Closure land slippage project, and the thing seems to be going okay on stream. You know, not on stream, but what should have happened is happening, and the project seems to be flowing smoothly now. In a matter of days after that, an episode was aired by the National Democratic Congress. They put out a statement commending the NDC administration for the significant progress made in the closure community regarding the major road construction. Now, there's a saying, let sleeping dogs lie. Now, after months and months of mistakes, after mistakes, incompetence after incompetence, here is what the NDC had to say. We commend the NDC administration for the significant progress made in the closure community regarding the major road reconstruction. The most challenging times are now behind us. The Ministry of Infrastructure, the contractor, the Member of Parliament for St. John, Honorable Karine James, are all focused on the revised completion dates. While challenges may arise, it is our collective ability to address them and that will make the difference. Well done, Government of Grenada. Hashtag moving Grenada forward. Hashtag transforming St. John's. Now that's funny because the minister, the MP, Karine Z. James, has been missing in action from the closure scene completely, totally. They call out the contractor, the Ministry of Infrastructure. They've all failed on that project. And that is why we're here millions of dollars later for a project that was supposed to cost $200 and something thousand Millions of, and that 1.6 million that the Prime Minister spoke of months ago. Yeah. Since then, so much has happened with the slippage that we're millions of dollars. They have not told us the estimated amount yet. They have yet to tell us the date, no, of completion. But they're speaking of it as being on time. Now, how could it be when we're months behind? Right? How could it be? So you finally listened to what Mr. Perry had to say, advice he personally gave to the CTO one-on-one, the CTO of the Ministry of Infrastructure, Mr. Kevin Blanche. You brought on site a local engineer, Mr. Timothy Bob. If you step up from the contractor and his foreman or supervisor on the job, still no temporary showing that Mr. Perry was pounding, was bawling from the top of his lungs for begging for temporary shoring. Still nothing. Mr. Bob spoke of the wall that was being built. It seemed to be strong because even with the slippage, it did not move. La-da-dee-la-da-da. Then finally, in a news item on GIS, on Wednesday, the 3rd of September 2025, months later, and millions of dollars more than was estimated, and with additional help from a Dr. Derrigue, a geotechnical engineer, according to the CTO, from Trinidad and Tobago. I found that out, they didn't tell us, but I found out that Dr. Derrigue is from Trinidad. They finally got to the point of shoring, temporary shoring, for weeks on. They were being asked, begged to do temporary shoring and stop the excavation. Now, from the also geotechnical engineer, Mr. Perry St. John, here is the GIS clip on the progress at Clogier.
Topographical survey and geotechnical soil testing findings solidify work at the Clogier retaining wall project in St. John. In July, a portion of the Clogier Road collapsed during construction of a retaining wall, deeming it impassable. The road was closed and construction work immediately commenced. The Ministry of Infrastructure contracted senior consultant and civil engineer Dr. Timothy Bob, who conducted various assessments on the area, including a topographical drone survey to determine the extent of the soil movement and also a soil test to determine the soil strata. On Tuesday, GIS visited the project site with a few of the technical officials and engineers. Dr. Bob explained what was done since the collapse of the road to present.
The settlement would have been as a result of consolidation, which is what happens when you have clay material or soil with water in it, because the area was saturated, on which a load is placed or from which water is removed. As the water comes out, the soil, the solid material reconstitute or reconfigure themselves with the void that is left by the water, and that causes settlement, which we call consolidation settlements. I returned to the site about 4 days after, and within that time I noticed that there was a drop in the ground of between a foot and 24 inches, between 1 to 2 feet. Now, consolidation settlement is a slow process. You're talking about settling probably inches in a year and not feet in a matter of weeks. So once I saw that, I realized what was happening here was beyond consolidation.
Upon completion of the survey, it was concluded that work to construct the retaining wall was obstructed because the soil was moving.
It turned out from my further study of the area that what was actually happening here is that you have a large deposit of clay on a hard material, and the area is saturated with groundwater. So what really happened here is, what I surmised was that as the excavation was being done for the wall, the water lubricated the hard material and the clay was sliding down on it. As the clay slid down, which is the hillside, the work to construct the retaining wall would have been obstructed by the soil coming down.
Dr. Bob outlined the remedial steps he recommended to the ministry and government.
I advised the ministry that we need to do shoring there. So what we opted for, because we'd have had a lot of pressure on that material to retain the soil, we went for some large mass concrete blocks, which are quite heavy. We used those to retain the cut area so that the retaining wall construction can proceed. That has worked perfectly, and the retaining wall construction has continued. So what really happened here was simply movement of the soil because of the excavation which was being done on the lower end. That has been sorted, and so the construction is continuing as we speak.
Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry of Infrastructure, Kevin Blash, is satisfied with the survey and its findings. He is optimistic that work will continue according to schedule without major setbacks.
All of this information would allow us to now recalibrate and come up with the ideal design solution for the area, which is part of which is currently ongoing. So on site today, you would notice that the contractors are progressing well. They are currently backfilling the retaining walls that would have been constructed in the area. Mr. Bob would have also introduced a sacrificial concrete retaining wall to provide additional lateral support as a temporary shoring to the construction of the wall ongoing. That would have enabled to stymie the movement of the soil downslope, and it would have also created a safe working environment for the contractor and his employees in installing the retaining wall. Today, the ministry is confident in the proposed solution. Something that we've additionally done is engage the services of Dr. Derge, who is a geotechnical engineer with years of experience, who would also provide some additional technical support to us, just to ensure that we are on track.
Grenada.
Almost 5 months ago, since May 2025, this project has started. And they only now realize they need to do temporary shoring and that they needed to stop the excavation. After months, as I said, of bawling at the top of his lungs, free advice, stop the excavating, use temporary shoring to stop the slippage. Here is Mr. Perry.
The solutions for future purposes. If you're doing a project of that nature, the first thing you need, okay, is a proper base map survey showing all the existing utilities, showing the extent of the project area, and on that survey should show locations of test bits or boring log, which will give the contractor an idea of what sort of soil, what sort of water table that he or she is dealing with. so they can make the necessary arrangements during construction. And let's go back again. That being said, it's quite obvious that if you're going to do a project of that nature, that you must consider work zone traffic control. And that is simple. How do you control the traffic during construction? Obviously, this was a project where no vehicle was supposed to pass on that roadway because there was an absence of temporary shoring. So as I've said before in previous videos, vehicles are passing on that roadway. It's only going to increase the lateral pressure on the soil and cause failure, as was predicted. It's not a miracle. It's not like magic. It's like, oh my God, what happened? No, it was obviously predictable. The only way you'd have been able to allow traffic to pass in that area during construction is if you had temporary shore or brace the roadway. And there are many ways to do that. Okay. I don't know what you guys have available in Grenada, but you could have done some sheet piling if you have sheet piling. I'm sure you do. You could have done a solar pile and log and wall, which is something that it's just common practice in shoring during construction. And that is not a complicated thing. Okay. That is not a complicated thing. I'm sure you have wood beams and I'm sure you have steel I-column sections in Grenada. If you assure the embankment, if you assure the roadway during construction and the building of that retaining wall, none of this would have happened. For crying out loud, you could have used a rake assuring system. At least put something temporarily in place. And it's quite obvious there was absolutely a lack of supervision during this project. Because if there was anybody from the ministries that came out to that site and saw what was going on, anyone with a little bit of experience would say, no. This has to stop. Let's shut it down. And let's make sure we put the right measures in place to continue this construction. Now, you quite possibly have a man who's going to lose his house or half of his house. I mean, I've seen a video where the step is already broken and there's several soil cracks around the man's property. This house is going to go. If something is not done immediately, this house is a goner. So not only do you waste a bunch of money during the construction, now you have to pay this man, I don't know what, 300,000-400,000, whatever the house costs, if it goes. And that's a very high likelihood at this stage. Okay, closure. First order of business is site stabilization. Mr. Alvin Brown has said they have moved out of the Ministry of Infrastructure and has gotten outside consultants to help them. Well, I humbly request that someone suggests to them, Mr. Timothy Bob and all the outside consultants, please. First order of business is site stabilization. How do you do that? Sheet piling. If you have access to some sheet piling, change the bucket on that excavator and stop excavating. Change the bucket, add an extension for a hammer or driver, drive some sheet pile, stabilize the roadway, and then you can do all the excavation and you can continue working on the permanent fix, which is the retaining wall. But key, first order of business, site stabilization. So for all of you who said that you love the NDC so much and you love the administration so much, get the message to the right people.
He said, I could easily play you half a dozen clips or more with this gentleman saying the same thing over and over and begging since before the road broke, when the traffic caused the road to break, since before then, because he begged not to have traffic on the road without the temporary shoring, that it would crumble. And then everything started going downhill from there, the slippage and all of that. Then he begged to stop the excavation. They excavate all up under the man's house. That he can't live in it now. That it tilted to the other side. The step gone. I know you're talking about Minister Karen James and the Ministry of Infrastructure and the contractor. Are you guys serious? Are you serious? That you're trying to grab at? NDC big release. NDC put out and saying that even the CTO, who's been missing in action after a while, when the things got sticky, now saying things is on the work is on stream. How could it be on stream months later? How could it be? Why I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it because I understand the need to claim certain things to get a feel good moment because we're heading into an election. And besides pension, well, some of them you all dropped off. I don't know why. The duck salary that dropped off, and there's something else that you all dropped off. But what else? Since you came in, you did the payment of the pension retroactively. That's it, right? You regularize a few people. You gave us bi-monthly, and the rising minimum wage. And you have nothing to show, especially when it comes to capital projects, which is what a country survives on, really. Other than that, what we're doing is spending money, right? Bills in bills and others. So I could understand the need, but geez, anything so? Any flimsy looking little things? And the surrogates came out. Everybody posting. One gentleman post on my way up to closure. That was a couple of weeks ago, I know. On my way up to closure today, I also noticed some resurfacing of existing roads taking place. Which road? Which resurfacing? Out of desperation from the NDC. It says the Ministry of Infrastructure, the contractor, and the Member of Parliament of St. John, Karine Z. James, are all focused. Focused? Which? Focus on what? What is the revised date of the project? What is it? The Member of Parliament, Karine James, the last time the people of Closure saw her was when the Prime Minister went to Closure in July. And she looked like she managed to scramble out of her bed and make it to the meeting. For the reopening of school, she couldn't even accompany her workers or supporters, whoever they were, who went up there to distribute school items. Few school items. By the time 2 people reached down in the community center, done. She couldn't even show her face there and have not been there since. Let me share with you what she said at that meeting. That's all they've heard from Karine James.
And if we are honest with ourselves, this project and the one before that are the 2 projects that any government, any representative has truly done in a substantive way for the people of Closure in St. John.
Happy show. What project? The Prime Minister and the Minister for Infrastructure at that visit disclosed that they will be compensating the gentleman for his house, which they excavated away. Let's hear him.
It also means it is most likely that the property that has been impacted will have to be acquired by the government and compensation paid to the property owner And he's here so that we can have access to that area to be able to make sure that the construction work continues and that there is no further risk of life or injury to property or to any person.
So, Prime Minister, have you, as Minister of Infrastructure, or anyone from your Ministry of Infrastructure, have you spoken to that gentleman on purchasing his house, on paying him for his house? Have you? Mouth open, words jump out. Just saying sensationalism. Look at the house. Look at the gentleman's house as it hung there. So yes, the Ministry of Infrastructure finally caught their bearings with the Closure land slippage project. With outside help, the question is, what is the estimated cost and stipulated time for the completion of the Closure project? And while you're at this, please give us the same for the Cliff Road project. And as we are on the Cliff Road project, how is the bribery investigation going involving the Minister of MIT, who took a bribe of $115,000 from Mr. Nelson Louison, the managing director of CCI, in exchange for the Cliff Road project. 100,000 in hand and 15,000 renovation on his white Isuzu pickup truck T4254. Part of the deal was the purchasing of the minister's house in Mount Panassa, St. George. Now that house was held at the development bank as part collateral or security for the almost $300 million loan given to Andy Williams by the NDC Board of Directors, with the party treasurer, Ms. Andrea St. Bernard, as the chairperson of the GDB Board of Directors. Though Ms. St. Bernard is also the advisor to the Prime Minister and government of Grenada on development and investment. She's also the special envoy or ambassador for same development and investment, and a CBI agent. The operative word here, investment. Who gets most of the investment by the CBI. She also holds director's position on other boards like the Grenada Electricity Company Board, GrenLec Board of Directors, and is now project sponsor for Project Polaris. What I don't understand is the part where the bank that loaned Andy Williams the money to purchase the house was about to foreclose on the house because it wasn't being paid for. The mortgage was not being paid. The question is, if the house was not fully owned by Mr. Williams, by Andy Williams, how is it the GDB was holding the deed and plan as security? Or were they? Was it just in writing? Right? Because the house was about to go into foreclosure. Over $3 million loan plus $300,000 for the MSME loan that they gave to him a mere months. I think it was less than 6 months because it was in December of 2022. 300,000 first given to Andy Williams for monies that was allocated for small hoteliers. And according to the arrangement made in his 6th deed of further charge, if he paid $300,000 towards his loan by July 2023, they would release his security. And that's how he was able to sell the house to Mr. Louison, Mr. Nelson Louison. Now let me add here that his deed of further charge was prepared by a member of the GDB Board of Directors. Now let me add here that his deed of further charge was prepared by a member of the GDB Board, Mr. Trevor St. Bernard, while Andy Williams was the borrower and had to be okayed by the board. I'll leave that there with you. Let us move on. Let's play a clip for this gentleman on solar light.
Hi everyone. Now this is a gentle reminder that the Honorable Deacon Mitchell and his team are doing a great job in Grenada, and they must be commended. Now, one of the things that I have taken note of is the amount of solar lights that are being installed throughout the country. They are being installed at schools, main roads, back roads, alleys, and even footpaths. And this is great. Now, lights means security. People would not be afraid to venture out at night. And this can lead to productivity. So this is a great aspect of transformation, and it should be continued. So hats off to the government of Grenada for doing a fantastic job.
And even footpaths, he said. Interesting, interesting. The government of Grenada is paying for these solar lights, huh? Okay. Mister, if only you knew about those lights, you would not have made that clip. You would not have made that video. Yes, whoever you are, mister, because I'm trying to find out who you are. Nobody seems to know who you are. One thing's for sure, you don't live in Grenada. Everywhere, you correct. Solar lights, everywhere. I think by now, I've heard it's over 7, according to records, the Minister of Finance, 700 plus lights were already put up, right? And you're correct, footpaths as well. And all of that, because the owner of the company is a buddy of the Prime Minister. Who's somebody of the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell? A company formed after the elections of June 23rd, 2022. Formed just to pave lights for to put up lights for the government, if you ask me. Everywhere. Lights making social distancing, 6 feet apart. I mean, the Western Corridor, the MP there was boasting. Was it in Parliament? She spoke 300 and 300 plus. I don't remember the exact figure, was already up in that area. Well, I understand why as well. You guys, they so see through. They so see through. It's not funny. The Prime Minister in Parliament boasted of how many lights in St. David's as well. For him, it was over 300 also, right? According to my investigations, landing cost for those lights are 300 USD per light, okay? Solar duty free, of course. Those lights are sold between $3,800 to $4,500 per light. Allegedly so. Do the math. Do the math. Multiply that by 800. Transformation for real. Transformation for the pockets of a few. Solar lights everywhere. Yes, you're correct. Mr. Gentleman, whoever you may be. And this is a type of nepotism. The type of, I mean, I don't know how to explain it. What is taking place here on the island, because I've never seen it before. And I've been on this piece of rock for a good few years. And you hear people every day complaining or speaking of it. They've never seen that before. And how disappointed. I tell you, the road march lines are. I am so disappointed of those guys, with those guys. So disappointed. The owner of the company, or one of them, the main man, Mr. Kurt Ross, is also the chairman of the Spice Mass Corporation. Now, I kind of stayed away from Spice Mass after the whole Spice Mass, and it was for a reason. I kind of was waiting to hear, what came out of it, get proper data of the success of Spice Mass. I'm sure you heard it, the most successful carnival ever. But I ask, where is the statistics? Where's the data to show how successful the carnival was? How successful the product, the Spice Mass product, how successful that was. First of all, the commercial part of Carnival was successful. And I could understood. And when I say that, we're speaking about the private parties, the brunches, the cruises, the fancy mass bands, mostly of foreign influences. Yes, they were sold out, and all of the parties were sold out. You had cruises starting from 8 in the morning and all day long. And the foreigners, the visitors, enjoyed that. Most of them purchased their tickets before they even landed on the shows online, right? And so whoever hosted some of these parties and cruises, and they were successful. This carnival, most of the local promoters canceled their events. So again, what we mean when we say the most successful carnival ever? I believe the only person who normally is annual with their shows, and so was Talpree with Pre-Day. The others cancelled. What we know is the government of Grenada injected the largest subvention ever, $3 million. $2 million from the National Lottery Authority, the NLA, and 1 million from central government. The largest subvention ever. That is what we know into Spice Mass. I believe the subvention for the contestants for the Carnival Queen show, that doubled. I stand corrected from 10,000 to 20,000. But they had a lot of money to play with, right? How much money Spice Mass made at the gates? Collection for tickets. Tell us. We know the Soca Monarch made a fair amount. And as always, Soca Monarch, if it's one show that makes them could pay for themselves, is the Soca Monarch. Secondly, the Spice Mass portion of the carnival, according to reports, was just as bad as the last 3 years of Spice Mass. Disorganized, poorly produced, logistics terrible. But no surprise there. The contract for the logistics was given to the same individual who had it last year. The friend and partner of the chairman of the Spice Mass board of directors, Mr. Kurt Ross. And partner, not partner in relationships, in relationship, partner in business, partner. And well, I think the chairman removed his name from the White and something, one of the White shows that takes place by Daigo, that White, yes. They were partners. No, he removed his name. Like how the Prime Minister removed his name from and his address from the CBI as a CBI agent from Mitchells and Co. That kind of remove, yeah. So they pull the wool over our eyes and we can't see no more. We blind now. We blind. All of us, we blind. Imagine the Soca Monarch bar was contracted out to the friend, the same friend, the one who did the logistics, was contracted out to him for a mere $30,000. So if the bar made $100,000 or $150,000, all pocketed, when we remove the 30,000, yeah? The Juve, same. Started late, persons trade, walking up and down all morning, 8 o'clock going, 9 o'clock going, 10 o'clock going, before you see the first Juve band come down. No order. Same thing. Panorama, poorly attended, poorly produced. If there was logistics, it was a disaster. The Mardi Gras, well, that one ended up an abortion. And, well, I saved the best for last. Majestic Thursday, aka the Queen Show, the Carnival Queen Show, the worst ever seen in Grenada for any, even villages, village Queen Show was better than this Queen Show. And you see, I didn't want to get started on Carnival. I wanted to stay away from it. The show was produced by our very own Nila Athien, right? The Prime Minister's press secretary. And she was one of the two hosts or hostess of the show. First of all, you swear it was a Miss St. David's pageant. As I said, the Prime Minister's press secretary, who is from St. David's, she produced the show. She shared hostess together with another former Queen contestant from St. David. The chairperson of the Queen Show Committee, she from St. David's. And she's also the sister of the CEO of the Spice Mass Corporation. She represents the pageant on the Spice Mass Board of Directors. The young gentleman ushering the people on the stage is just St. David's. Even the filler, the soca artist they use as a filler, is from St. David's. It is time the National Carnival Queen Show be taken away from Nila Etienne and the St. David's posse. The production of the pageant, or the producer of the pageant, Nila Etienne, should be responsible for the comprehensive planning, budgeting, the execution of the event, overseeing everything from the initial concept, the development, the delivery of the event. Producer's role also involves managing the logistics, coordinating the staff and the contractors, and handling the technical aspects such as sound, light. How can she do that when she's hosting? Share the money. Share the thing. Give somebody else. And somebody else out of St. David's. To do the hostessing, while you, if you say you producer, stay back and manage the thing. Most of the persons mentioned and others involved behind the scenes are members of the St. David's Carnival Cultural Committee and were in the St. David's camp. The producer, hostess, for the most part, they couldn't control themselves when St. David's was on stage. The adjectives used were more sophisticated than the ones used to the others. The adjectives used to describe her costumes, her costume, her swimwear, her evening wear. It was also quite obvious the young ladies were not properly trained for the evening. Did the committee meet or the producer meet with the young ladies to discuss their talents? First time in the history, or like first time? First time in the history of Queen Show, I observed a contestant build half a house on the stage. It took 30 minutes. Drill, hammers, po, 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 on stage. How it is? The committee, the producer, nobody knew this was going to happen. If you met with your contestants and discussed what their talents were, what they need, what's going to happen, you would have known that. 30 minutes just so she could walk through the doorway. She had nothing to do with that part, the house that was built on the stage after she came through the doorway. And there's so much more that I can talk about when it comes to this pageant that I'm going to leave alone for now. Yes, we saw the paid influencers in social media, bigging up the carnival and doing what they were paid to do. Nothing wrong with that. That's the thing now. You pay influencers, you bring them here, you pay for you put them up, and after the carnival, they say, well, it was a great carnival, and encourage people to come. Yeah. But we need to know for sure that our carnival, our spice mass product was successful. The politicians and their friends need to stay out of the spice mass, stay away from the spice mass product. Of course, they enjoy the VIPs, the food and the drinks, drink out the bar, have all the high-end drinks there, and then after fall back on the local bar, the regular bar, high-end drinks. Money is not accounted for. I understand information reaching me that VIP tickets were duplicated to give out to friends and families, I suppose. So hundreds of complimentary tickets were given out. Folks, what we're asking for is a synopsis with data and statistics of what took place in Spice Month. Not just, and we don't want from them it was successful because you had a good time, you enjoyed the view. Look at the picture photo there. See how they're enjoying the VIP and posing, and the chairman of the Spice Mess board, you see, there in the white, posing with the members of cabinet. All you good, we? All you real good. All you too good. As we come to the close, I have some questions I need to ask. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, is it true the National Lottery Authority is now broke? And the reason for the new Playway games that are coming on stream to finish take the pennies from the ordinary Grenadians. Folks, this is a serious thing. I'm seeing it every day. Persons spending the day outside businesses that have the lottery, the games. People with notebook, pen and pencil, paper long so. Persons that cannot afford. It's an addiction now. It's an addiction. And we could understand the need to try and to win monies, trying to make a better life for them and their families. But it's something we have to keep a close eye on. Well, I spoke about the not paying their bills for the Whitsuntide games. I'm pleased to announce that they managed to pay their bills and that's a lot to know, to pay their bills for the Whitsuntide games. Is it true Gravel and Concrete is taking its share of beating from the nation builders and friends of nation builders who helped fund the NDC in the June 2022 elections? And there are company names like Icon Inc., our own chief of staff is the sole person on that registration. Is it true that he is the owner director, and that as of June 30th, 2025, according to Gravel and Concrete account, receivables and accounts payable spreadsheet is owing, Gravel and Concrete is owing Icon Inc. $87,814. And is it true that on that same spreadsheet, Gravel and Concrete is owing Spice Island Automotive Inc. $22,564.99? To whom it may concern, what happened to the missing monies from the Golden Jubilee celebration from the $22.5 million are located? The $500,000 that was missing, what happened to the $22.5 million allocated? We were promised an audited report on the spending, and we're yet to receive such. So Mr. Orlando Romain, we the people would like a report on Unleash, the inaugural culture and creative industry held 2 years ago in 2023. We would like an audited report on that as well, sir. How much did it cost the people of Grenada? When can we see the audited report of Unleash? And what happened to Unleash 2024 and 2025? $24 million from the CRIF payout to support farmers and fisher folks through SIEP program. Now, mere weeks after the $24 million was deposited into that program, the program closed its doors. The question is, what happened to the $24 million? Is there an inquiry into the corruption at CAIPO? This is to the AG, the registrar, and the Prime Minister and the government of Grenada. Prime Minister, what is being done about your friend and nation builder colleague, Mr. William Batiste, and his girlfriend, Miss Cindy Williams, the managing director of the Grenada National Lottery Authority, who are openly raping the authority with you turning a blind eye? Prime Minister, again, how about the bribery that took place between your cabinet minister, MIT, Mr. Andy Williams, and the general manager of the construction company, CCCCI, that landed the Cliff project? $115,000 bribery after purchasing his house for $600,000 and $115,000 in hand. Folks, every square inch of this little rock is infested with corruption and get-rich-quick schemes from captain to crook. That's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, trying to keep them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another version of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. Have a great week now. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.